עלינו ועל ישראל עמך.
כל העולם כולו גשצה מאוד, גשצה מאוד, גשצה מאוד, כל העולם כולו גשצה מאוד, גשצה מאוד, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל. The whole entire world is a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. The whole entire world is a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. But the main thing to recall is to have no fear at all. But the main thing to recall is to have no fear at all. כל העולם כולו גשצה מאוד, גשצה מאוד, גשצה מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשצה מאוד, גשצה מאוד. והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל.
all of you on this Shabbat. Good to be with those of you out there too, online. It's always lovely to have you. Please say hello to each other in the chat so that you know that you're there in a community as well. Few notes about tonight's service, that the liturgical pieces of our service are shortened, are compressed this evening, so that we have a little more time to hear from and ask questions of Zach Bodner, who's our Brenda Rosenfeld scholar this evening, and you'll hear more about Zach a little later in the service. So just so that people know sort of what we're doing and how that plays out. We're going to begin on page 24 in your Siddur with Shalom Aleichem.
So occasionally I'm asked, why do you pick this particular melody for Shalom Aleichem? If you don't recognize it, it's a melody Leonard Cohen made famous, if you're a Leonard Cohen fan. If you're not a Leonard Cohen fan, it's another one of those old drinking songs. But many of you know that Leonard Cohen spent quite a number of years in the Claremont area, occasionally would come down into the village, occasionally would eat at Yanni's. And when he passed, which is his yahrzeit, I don't know if it's exactly this weekend or, but it's around, it was election day of 2016. We decided that we would put the words of Shalom Aleichem to his music. Clap, sing, do your thing. Yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da da, ya da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, da da. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malchei, Malchei, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malchei, Malchei, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malchei, Malchei, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Yadadai, clap your hands. Yadadai, 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 Last paragraph. Seichen L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malchei, Malchei, Malchei Elyon, Bimelech, Bimelech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Ethel's going to lead us in clapping. Ya-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da.
We turn to page 2 in our Siddur as we prepare to bless our Shabbat lights. We have an additional candle that we have lit and to remind us of all of those who are not able to sit at Shabbat tables at this time because they've been killed. They were killed in the October 7th massacre, or they've been taken hostage, and we keep their memories with us and keep our hope alive for those who have been taken hostage, that they are not alone because the Jewish people stands with them. And let's rise, and we'll join in our blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kireshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehad likneh shel Shabbat.
You may be seated. We turn to pages 20 and 21. As is our custom, before we enter into Lecha Dodi, we take a moment for Hazarat HaShavua, for a review of the week, just to take a momentary pause on each day, its blessings and its challenges, and then we'll come back together and sing Lecha Dodi. A deep breath. We'll sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to verse 9, I'll ask everybody who can comfortably do so to rise and face the doors from which we entered to welcome the Shabbat presence and the Nishama Yetera, the extra soulfulness that travels with us during Shabbat into the congregation and into our hearts. For those of you at home, to turn and face toward the doors of your home, the door to your home, and welcome that Shabbat presence and let it fill your house. Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat lekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat lekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echan Hishmianu el hamyuchan Adonai echan u'shmo echan Shem multiferet v'litchilah Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat lekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat lekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor habracha Meirosh mikedem nesucha Sov ma'aseh b'machra ilah Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat lekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat lekabela Itoreri ki ba'ore kumi uri shiraberi kevod Adonai alayich רגלה לחדודי לקראת קלה יללה 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 בני שבת לקבלה לחדודי לקראת קלה יללה 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 בני שבת לקבלה.
Rise if you can comfortably do so and face the doors.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לחדודי לקראת קלה יללה 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 בני שבת לקבלה לחדודי לקראת קלה יללה 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 בני שבת לקבלה.
We're going to turn to page 28 and continue with Baruch Hu, our call to prayer.
La 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Last three lines in the Hebrew on page 30, El Chai V'Kayam.
El Chai V'Kayam Tamidim L'Chaleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Amariv Aravi.
Amen. Page 34 and 35, Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
You may be seated. Page 37. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Last Hebrew paragraph, page 36, Lema'an Tizkaru.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We turn to Micha Mocha, our song of freedom, our song of redemption. As I mentioned last week, for me, it's been helpful to remind ourselves that as the Hasidic teachers taught about this, it's about the narrow places, but also about there is life beyond the narrow places, that we move through them, we move to the other side. And so I know many of you, because I've been talking to many of you, we all feel like we're in this constricted place, like the world is closing in. And Micha Mocha is about thanks for the redemptions that have passed, but also faith and hope that we move through to a place of wide expanse where we can sing out in joy. Micha Mocha.
מי כמוך באים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא נורא תהילות עושה פלא Seifala Malchutecha Ra'u Vanecha Volkei Ayam Livnei Moshe Umiriam Ze Eli Anu V'Yameru Adonai Imloch Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot, osei fala nora tehilot, osei fala, osei fala. V'ne'emar Kifad Adonai et Yaakov Ugalo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
Amen. Page 43. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours.
ufros aleinu sukan, sukan, shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukan, sukan, shlomecha. Yalai lalai, 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 yalai lalai. Froth haleinu sukan, sukan, shlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Amen. We give thanks for Shabbat, for the breath that it gives to our week, the opportunity it gives us to pause, to reflect, to connect to our deepest selves and to our community and to the Holy One. We join in singing Vishamru, page 44.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat Ledorot HaMerit Olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat Ledorot HaMerit Olam. Beini uven b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat lasot et HaShabbat lidorot hamerit olam. Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai, Asa Adonai, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat lasot et hashabat lidorot hamerit olam. U'v'yom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat lasot et HaShabbat lidorot hamerit olam.
So we're going to have, after we, in a moment, sing Adonai Svatai Tiftach together, we'll have a silent Amidah this evening. So we'll just start together and then move on to page 48. The service section goes through page 63. You can use that to read the prayers that are there in the book or the text of your own heart. We rise for Adonai Svatai Tiftach if you're comfortably able to do so. And then we'll continue silently.
Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagim, Tefilatecha Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufiagi Tehilatecha Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Fiagi.
We continue silently.
Bottom of page 62. Oseh shalom bimrama, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom bimrama, v'yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. One more time. Oseh shalom bimrama ve'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom bimrama, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen.
Page 253. Page 253. We turn our thoughts to all in our lives and all in our community in need of healing, of body, of mind, and of spirit. Most of the Hebrew words are here on the page. We add to them El Na Rifan Allah, Moses' words when his sister Miriam is ill. God, please bring her healing. And Elna Rafana Lo, please bring him healing. We ask for healing of body, of mind, and of spirit.
Mishaberach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak Ve'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel veLeah Hu Yevarech et HaCholim Elna Rifana La Elna Rifana Lo.
We ask for blessings upon Rebecca Gilman, Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Tobak, Rosin Lefkowich, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakov, Kathy Blumenfeld, Caitlin Antrim, Jennifer Rudin, Brad Holland, Serena Postal, Robert Strober, Marilyn Lubarski, Joan Morse, Nomi Kravitz, Lori Snyder, Charity Razaday, Mike Klein, Barbara Fass, Joel Beasy, Gloria Foster, Rita Warshaw, Robert Gerard, Adele Harris, Brenda Fountain Gerard, Jan Marcus, Marla Fergoso, Al Shapiro, Jeff Nelson, Robert Waldman, Barry Gustafero, Udit Gratz-Delange, Eva Laxon, Audrey Kubil, Deborah Delange, James Stead, Rita Elias, Benjamin Jones, Stephen Gilbert, Sharon Zaki, Nell Barron, Oliver Holland, Bill Hughes, Ed Means, Simon Saul, Stephanie Holland, Jerry Feingold, Ruth Lambert, Mark Feynman, and
David Bush, Howard Bush, Vince Smith. Elna Rifana, Elna Rifana La, Elna Rifana, Elna Rifana Lo.
I'd like to invite Nancy Ambrose to share a few words about our Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series. You also might have picked up a Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series brochure as you came in. Nancy.
Shabbat Shalom. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this special evening sponsored by the Brenda Rosenfeld Scholars Series. Tonight marks 9 years since the series was created. Okay. Tonight marks 9 years since the series was created in the fall of 2014, shortly after Brenda's untimely death. The series was established to honor Brenda's many contributions to Temple Beth Israel and to continue her legacy here by bringing to this congregation the best and brightest in diverse fields, as Brenda did during her 4 decades of leadership at Temple Beth Israel. In the past 9 years, the Brenda Rosenfeld Scholars Series has proudly hosted dynamic speakers on subjects that were of particular interest to Brenda: Israel, politics, education, theater, Jewish humor, art, government, Jewish food. And tonight's speaker, one of our very own, will certainly add to the provocative and relevant topics that have defined this series. Before we introduce our speaker, I would like to thank the members of the Brenda Rosenfeld Scholars Series Committee for all of their hard work to keep this series going, even during the pandemic. They are Diane Schuster, Marilyn Lubarsky, Karen Salter-Moss, Joan Gerard, the rabbi, the cantor, and this year, the help of Barry Weisban, our new administrator, and the staff at the temple. Toda Rabbah to all of you. And now, I would like to call up Lillian Metlitsky, the person who is most responsible for bringing our speaker back home to Temple Beth Israel. Thank you, Lillian.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm gonna. Shabbat Shalom. I have the fun part of the evening helping you all get to know Zach Bartner, a Metlitsky family friend, and a Ben Bayet, one of our own TBI family. Zach has been a wonderful friend for our son Warren for many, many years. We had just arrived in the US in 1978 and settled in Diamond Bar, knowing no one and feeling quite lonely, as immigrants do. A few weeks later, Warren, a first grader, stood waiting for the bus to go to a Jewish day camp at Mount Sac. And there he met another first grader from Diamond Bar, also going to the same camp. It was Zach. That was when their friendship blossomed, and although they weren't at the same elementary school, they spent summers together at the Jewish day camp. 5 years later, both families had made the move to Claremont. On the first day of school, and feeling very nervous about making new friends, Warren was thrilled to find Zach on the playground, and they have been best friends ever since. They graduated together from Chaparral and El Robley, and every Sunday they were together at Beit Sefer all the way through their bar mitzvahs. For those of you who remember, Zach writes in his book about the special memories of the puppet shows that Rabbi Earl Kaplan put on for his sermons during children's services. It was a highlight of the service for the children. Both boys loved sports. Throughout school and college, they were both very involved in soccer together and spent many afternoons outside the soccer season, riding bikes, swimming, and playing volleyball. And it did help when Zach's family moved from a little lower down below baseline up to their house in Pomelo, which was just a very short bike ride along the nature path for the two boys to get together. And another highlight that Warren reminded me of was the cycling tour that both of them took with the El Robley teacher, Mr. Lashi. Some of you may have children who also went on those bike rides, and they rode through California and Oregon and spent a lot of made a lot of good memories with each other on those rides. Even though Zach didn't continue through confirmation at TBI, he remained very connected to his Jewishness. Each summer, Warren and Zach went to a Jewish camp for a month, and both our families had the same standing rule. No matter what else was happening in the community or with their friends, every Friday night was Shabbat dinner with the family. It's a tribute to how close the boys were that Warren remembers we occasionally allowed him to join Zach's family for Shabbat dinner. And he was very impressed that they did the long Kiddush because we always did the short Kiddush. After graduating Claremont High School together, Warren and Zach both went to Yale. During high school, Zach had gone on an 8-week teen tour to Israel, and after that experience vowed to return to Israel. One of his trip counselors, who had just finished studying at the Hebrew University, became Zach's role model. So while at Yale, Zach did a semester abroad in Israel, studying at Hebrew University. He talks about that semester as being life-changing for him. As we were coming here in the car, we were asking him, did you ever think this is where you were going to be? And then he turned the question back on us and said, and where did you think I was going to be? And I told him I thought he was going to be in the corporate world. So that definitely put him on a very different path in life. Not only did he find his passion and his future life path, which is working to impact Jewish people and Israel, but he also met Ronit, whom he later married, and they have 3 children together. Returning from Israel, Zach shifted his field of study to psychology of religion. After graduating from Yale, he worked first as a counselor on the same teen tour that he had taken in high school, and later as a teen madrich at the Los Angeles JCCs. He returned back home to Claremont to complete a master's degree in the philosophy of religion and theology at the Claremont Graduate University. Next came an involvement in politics, first working for California State Senator Tom Hayden, and then with AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee in San Francisco, finally becoming the Pacific Northwest Regional Director for AIPAC. And somewhere in all of this, Zach found the time to graduate from Stanford Business School's executive program for nonprofit leaders. Zach has written many articles on Jewish peoplehood, Israel, and Zionism that have appeared regularly in publications throughout the US and in Israel. He has been invited to speak on Jewish innovation at JCCA events in the US and Israel. He has served on many advisory boards integral to Jewish life in California, such as the Taub Foundation for Jewish Life, the ADL of Northern California, and the BBYO of Northern California. He's also served on the board of directors of the J Weekly, the Israel Center of the Jewish Community Federation of San Francisco, and Congregation Beth Shalom in San Francisco. And to add to this very impressive list, Zach is also an accomplished speaker, as you will, I'm sure, see tonight, including as a moth storyteller and a TEDx presenter. In 2013, he joined the Oshman Family Jewish Community Center in Palo Alto as the CEO, where he is still today. Under his leadership, the JCA began to host an annual conference on Zionism 3.0, a theme that Zach, I hope, will address today and tomorrow with us as new ideas for how we live and relate between Jews in the diaspora and Jews in Israel. And this became the Z3 project, which is now a global effort to reimagine diaspora-Israel relations. About 2 years ago, Zach's book, Why Do Jewish, and I have it upside down, there we go, Why Do Jewish, a manifesto for 21st century Jewish peoplehood, was published to great acclaim. In the book, he lays out a vision for how to live a Jewish life in today's world that includes a relationship with Israel. As soon as I read the first pages of the book, I knew that his message was one that would resonate with so many TBI congregants, and I'm pleased that he is here today to be able to talk with you. I know this is a long list of qualifications, names, accomplishments, and I thank you for allowing me the time to boast about what a wonderfully accomplished, knowledgeable, and visionary person we have the honor of listening to tonight as our Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Speaker. I am very proud that our family has had some small part of his life and very grateful to him for the many years of friendship and support that he has given to Warren. And with that, I'm inviting Zach to return to his bar mitzvah roots and once again take his place on the TBI bima to inspire and teach us all. Zach.
Thank you, Lillian. That was so sweet. Do I have to stand back here for the microphone, or can I come out here?
If you want to hold a wireless mic, you can walk around, but no, they won't hear you online if you're not in front of
Okay,
if you're not in
all
front
right.
of a microphone.
I'll stand back here, and the cantor can play with my microphone. So first of all, wow, what an introduction. In all my life, I've never had an introduction like that. It reminds me of the old Golda Meir quote, "Don't be so humble, you're not that great." So thank you for... And I'm just glad when we came on our way over here and I asked you the question, where did you think I would be? I'm just glad you didn't say prison, because that would have really made it very awkward for me. So, but thank you. It does feel great to be back here at Temple Beth Israel. It is my first time since my bar mitzvah, although I do think that Rabbi Kaplan of blessed memory asked me to come up and maybe do a couple blessings afterwards, as the tradition, like the year after or the couple weeks after. So, but it has really been, I want to say, almost 40 years, right? 30-some years since we've been here. My old friend Warren, Tanya, Erica, there's just friends from way, way back that you guys are coming back here regularly because your family's still here, but my family moved away from Claremont several years back, so it has been a long time. So it's wonderful to be back here for this homecoming. Thank you to Nancy. Thank you to the rabbi for inviting me, for Diane as well. So I want to just spend a few minutes talking about the book. Why do Jewish? Why do Jewish? Have you thought about that question for yourselves? By the way, that's the reason why I wrote the book. I wrote the book during COVID when I wasn't sleeping like the rest of us. We're all working from home. My wife and I had this ongoing joke. Are we working from home or are we living at work? Because you're just always working when your laptop's at home and you can kind of always work. And I felt really bad sending one more email to my staff at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, but I wasn't sleeping, I was up, I was working all the time, and I had to make use of that time, so I started writing this book, and it just kind of came out. But at the end of the day, I wrote this book because I needed to be able to answer the question for myself, why? Why do Jewish? Why do I care so much? Why are you all here, other than Warren, who had to schlep down from Northern California with me, why are you all here on a Friday night? Why are you doing this thing called Jewish? Why are you spending this time? Why are you thinking about this for yourselves, for your kids, for your grandkids? Why? I wanted to be able to answer that question for myself. And in so doing, in writing this book and doing the research, it also kind of gave me an answer to that question of the meaning of life, which if you're interested, I can share that also later. I mean, you may be, maybe not. But that's my first challenge to all of you. Why? Why do you do this thing? Why do you spend this time? It's not easy. It's not inexpensive. It's not without pain or suffering. As we're seeing right now in Israel, as we're seeing our brothers and sisters in Israel really suffer, as we're seeing Jews around the world suffer, not so easy being Jewish today. So why? Have you thought about why you do this thing? Why it's so important for you to pass it on? As Lillian said, we grew up in my family and their family doing Shabbat dinners on Friday nights. But we had our own way of doing Shabbat. We weren't Shomer Shabbos in the observant sense of the word. We had our own interesting ways of keeping kosher. My father had a unique way of thinking that pepperoni pizza, not okay inside the house, somehow outside the house it became kosher. Chinese food had to be kosher inside the house, but mushu pork outside the house somehow became kosher. He never ate the shellfish, though, which was interesting. That's where, like, we all draw our lines in strange places, right? But there was this one time I remember at a big birthday of his, we went out to the restaurant, a nice restaurant in Tahoe, and he ordered the lobster bisque. And we were all kind of shocked because we knew he didn't eat shellfish. And without missing a beat, he says to the waiter, "Hold the lobster." And the waiter's, I'm not kidding. And the waiter's like, but sir, it's a lobster bisque. I don't understand. My dad says, yeah, a little garnish on top. You can leave that off. Like that's, right, that was his way of keeping kosher. We all have our own weird way of doing this. But we knew very clearly why. We knew why. We knew what it meant to us. We knew how it connected us to our past and our future. We knew it was fun. We knew it gave us meaning in life. It gave us that sense of belonging. That was how I answered the question. But I want to make sure that all of you are thinking about that and you're able to answer that question. And once you're able to have a little bit of clarity on the why, then you have to answer the question, what? What is Jewish? What is this thing Jewish that we call? Here's a multiple choice question for you. Is it a religion? Is it an ethnicity? Is it a nationality? Is it a culture? Is it a moral code? Is it all of the above? It's all of the above, right? That's why we call it a people. That's why the subtitle of the book is a manifesto for 21st century peoplehood, Jewish people. Because we know that you can be Jewish and you can be an atheist, or you can be Jewish and you can pray 3 times a day. We know that you can be Jewish and you could be an Indian Jew, an Asian Jew, an African Jew. When I was growing up here in Temple Beth Israel back in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't a whole lot of diversity in the Jewish community. Right? Diversity was an Ashkenazi and a Sephardi. That's what it was back in the day. I married into a nice Sephardic family, by the way, and if you've never had Sephardi charoset, way better than Ashkenazi charoset. I have to tell you, you got to try it. I see some nodding, so you know what I'm talking about. But nowadays, like you cannot, it's not even kosher anymore to say you don't look Jewish, you do look Jewish. It's like, because that's the beauty, it's the beauty of our people. When I was growing up again here, it was all about the humor of Mel Brooks and corned beef and matzo ball soup. And those of you who remember my father, it's not surprising that that's the Jewish that I grew up. But that doesn't define Jewish anymore today. Only a few years later, it could be kibbeh, it could be Ladino, like my father-in-law's family grew up with. It could be a whole different world of what it means to do Jewish. So answering that question, what is Jewish, is very complicated. The other reason why it's complicated is because we're evolving. It's not static. Jewish peoplehood has not been the same since it was thousands and thousands of years ago. We're on the eve of a new shift, by the way. The first iteration of Jewish peoplehood was back when Moses frees us from slavery. We're wandering in the desert. We become a mobile people. We receive the Torah. We're trying to figure out what it means to be a people. Our holiness is going with us. We build the Mishkan, the Holy Ark. Remember Raiders of the Lost Ark? That thing, we build that. We're traveling around. We're trying to figure out what it means to be a people. And then we wind up back in the Holy Land and we build the temple. Aha, it changes a little, right? It starts to look a lot more like a religion. We have the high priests. We have sacrifice. We have pilgrimage that we're supposed to be. First temple's destroyed, second temple's built, second temple's destroyed, and the rabbis go, uh-oh, now what are we going to do? And they create diaspora Judaism. 70 CE, the rabbis get together and they figure out, we have to find a way to keep this together. So prayer replaces animal sacrifice. The rabbinate replaces the high priesthood. Synagogues replace the temple. That's the same Judaism we've been doing for 2,000 years. But it's starting to look a little bit different these days. It's starting to look a little different. There are 5 meta trends that have brought us to a moment of inflection. And by the way, I was using the term meta before Mark Zuckerberg. Let the record reflect when you go back home to Northern California. 5 meta trends that have taken us to this moment of inflection. I'll take you through them very, very quickly. One is dropping institutional affiliation. The big institutions, synagogues, federations, JCCs, they're not what they were back when our grandparents were coming to this country. For better or worse. By the way, that's not a judgment. That's what the Pew study shows. That it's not a reason to Schreigewalt. It's not a reason to wring our hands and say, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Because guess what? Our young people, our kids and our grandkids, they're starting up really cool young Jewish organizations. Have you heard of Moshe House? Have you heard of Urban Adamah and Wilderness Torah and At the Well and Honeymoon Israel? These are all very cool young Jewish organizations. So our young people it's a win. They're doing Jewish and they're independent thinkers. That's a win. So all of us I run a JCC, you run a synagogue, the Federation, we shouldn't be going, uh-oh, what's going to be our future? We should be getting creative and thinking about that. Well, so that inflection of dropping institutional affiliation, it's a big deal. But it's not a reason to get depressed. The second major meta trend is shifting ethnography. As I said before, you can no longer say what somebody looks or doesn't look Jewish. And by the way, the reason why I talk about doing Jewish as opposed to being Jewish is I don't care who your mother was, who converted you, if you converted, if you didn't convert. There's a woman on our board of directors, a Japanese woman, who did not convert to Judaism. She's the Jewish one in the couple. Her husband just happened to be born to Jewish parents, raised in Florida. He could care less. She didn't convert. She's the one schlepping the kids to Hebrew school. She's the one who was going to lead our mission to Israel. She's the one who does the Shabbat dinner every Friday night. She's the one who does this really cool Passover Seder with these Japanese undertones. She's part of the mishpacha. She's part of the family. In my mind, that's the doing Jewish. It's not about being Jewish anymore. It's about doing Jewish. So shifting ethnography is a big deal in our community. In the next 20 to 50 years, it's not going to look the same. Number 3, the third meta trend is we now have a strong Israel. Suffering, hurting right now. We can talk more about that. But we also have a strong Jewish diaspora here in North America. And this is for the first time. And we have to figure out how to get along, how to contribute to each other, how not to have friction in our relationship, and how not to let the areas of disagreement define our relationship. There's a lot more there. How are we going to do this? What are our kids' relationship with Israel going to look like? Post October 7th, how does this change things? We'll talk more about the Zionism 3.0, Lillian. But I just want to briefly go through these meta trends. So the fourth one is a broadened search for meaning and belonging. People are no longer finding their people in the synagogue, in the church, in the mosque. They're finding it in a soul cycle class. They're finding it in a yoga class. They're finding it in a book club. And that's awesome. That's great. They're finding it on the hiking trail. They're finding it. And we just have to recognize that that's an opportunity for us. People want to find meaning. It's the two things everyone needs in life, a sense of meaning and a sense of belonging. And they're not always finding it in the old-fashioned ways. So what does that mean for Judaism? In the old days, our Judaism was our entire OS, our operating system. Excuse the Silicon Valley language. That's where I come from. Our Judaism was our OS. And think about it. For Ashkenazi shtetl Jews, it defined where you lived, how you dressed, how you ate, who you married, what you did for a living. Today, your Jewish might just be one piece of your identity. You might be a singer. You might be a dancer. You might be a traveler. You might be an attorney. You might be an accountant. And somewhere in there, you might be Jewish. You might just be an app. Right? Again, to go with that. So as we search for meaning and belonging, it might not come from the synagogue the way it used to. And that's okay. We just have to embrace that. And finally, the fifth meta trend is the fast pace of advances in science and technology. Science and technology is moving so fast that we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring in terms of the future of Jewish life. You've heard of a Shabbat elevator? You know what a Shabbat elevator is? In Israel and in very religious parts of New York, they'll turn the elevator in a building automatically on, so it stops at every other floor, so you don't have to push a button. By not pushing a button, you don't create a circuit, so you're not creating electricity, you're not creating fire, you're not breaking the Sabbath. What's it going to look like when there's a Shabbos car? The Waymo, the Tesla, these self-driving cars, the rabbi goes in on Thursday, programs where he wants to go on Shabbos, it drives for him. What's going to happen when we can wear these virtual reality goggles and we can actually have a real experience? They know that virtual reality rewires the brain. There was an experiment done at Stanford, and if you wear virtual reality goggles and are immersed in an environment for 2 hours with animals, you will become a vegetarian for 2 weeks. Your body will not let you eat animals after this experience. Your brain is rewired from the virtual reality experience. Okay? There are so many things that are happening. The DNA testing, the 23andMe, we could sense that we're like 98%, 99% Ashkenazi. This stuff can go dark too. By the way, think about how this can also go dark. Genetic testing and what it means. So science can be good, it can be bad. I'll tell you this quick story. My father of blessed memory passed away almost 9 years ago. Wow, I can't believe it. Next month it'll be 9 years. When he passed away, my brother who lives in Colorado, I live in California, we wanted to say Kaddish together. And at that time, the rabbis were like, and I'm not Orthodox, I've told you that already. But the rabbis were like, look, you can't really say Kaddish unless you're in the same room together, right? You can't even be around the corner. That's the halacha, right? The religious, you have to be in the same room. I didn't care because I wasn't that Orthodox, so sometimes we would go on Skype. Remember this thing, Skype, back in the day? But it wasn't really kosher. Fast forward to May of 2020, and my son was supposed to have a bar mitzvah. What happened 2 months before? Yeah, the world shut down, right? So we had to decide, are we going to have a Zoom bar mitzvah, which it wasn't a thing then. We were the first Zoom bar mitzvah in our community. Or were we going to wait and try to delay it because we thought COVID would be over in 2 months? We ended up going forward with a Zoom bar mitzvah. And the rabbi was like, I'm not so sure about this at the time. He was unsure. By the fall of 2020, everyone was doing high holiday services. I'm looking at you on Zoom right now. Technology changed overnight. Overnight. So the fast pace of science and technology is going to change Jewish life in ways that we don't even know. So it makes it hard to define what is Judaism. What is Jewish peoplehood? The last piece of this, and I'm going to go quickly, is the how. The how we do Jewish. And as I said, it's about the doing for me. I have this favorite word, tachlis. You know this word, tachlis? It's a Yiddish word, which means getting down to business, getting down to brass tacks. Tachlis, like when you're sitting in a meeting where there's too much talking, you just say, what's the tachlis? So I've taken this word tachlis and I've turned it into an acronym. 7 items, 7 letters, 1 for each item. If you can absorb any of these, the more the better, but any of these into your life, you can live a meaningful, relevant, joyful Jewish life. That's my thesis. That's the how. So the T is tikkun olam, doing good deeds in the world, making the world a better place. A lot of our young people, that's how they define their identity today. And by the way, it doesn't have to be in Jewish spaces. It doesn't have to be Jewish family and children's services. It could be environmental action. It could be social justice. It could be poverty. It could be homelessness. It could be racial justice. It's doing good deeds in the world. Tikkun olam. It's a way to define your Jewish identity. The A is art and culture. We connect to our art and culture. And that's not just the paintings of Chagall. It could also be the comedy of Sarah Silverman. Right? It could be food, Yemenite food, Israeli food, art and culture. It's very easy for our kids to take a lot of pride in Jewish baseball players that are playing in the World Series, right? Jewish basketball players, Jewish movie stars, Gal Gadot. That's a very easy portal of entry to connect to their Jewishness. Art and culture. I hate when people are like, oh, he's just a bagels and lox Jew. Like somehow they look down on them because somehow they're lesser than. Don't poo-poo it. It's a very easy portal of entry, the art and culture. The C in Tachlis is for community. That's what you're doing here. We're coming together, especially in tough moments, especially when we're grieving, we're hurting, we're mourning with what's going on in the world. The C, community, it's an important part of doing Jewish. The H is for holidays and rituals. We do holidays well. We do rituals well. We mark time well, whether it's Shabbat, whether it's the holidays of, it's hard to say Sukkot now because we know what happened on Sukkot, whether it's the high holidays, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. The Sukkot is a great example because we didn't make a sukkah growing up here. But now my kids, we do a sukkah in the backyard. The kids love to decorate it, but I make it relevant for them. Of course, it was from when we were wandering in the desert and we put up temporary dwellings. But it's also about having a roof over our heads and food on the table. That's how I make it relevant for our kids today so they can appreciate it. That's what you can do with holidays when you're thoughtful about it. That's the H in Tachlis. The L is learning. Learning. We're the people of the book. We got to learn a little something. And it could be Talmud, it could be Torah, it could be Tanakh, but it could also be the modern Jewish canon. It could be the stuff you're reading from Barry Royce. It could be the stuff you're reading from Yehuda Kurtzer. It could be podcasts. It could be movies. It's a massive Jewish canon today. And as long as we're learning and we're stretching ourselves, we're getting better. The I is for Israel. We must have a relationship with Israel. I think since October 7th, it's become clear to everybody. But before October 7th, as I went around on the book tour, people had a little bit of a mixed relationship with Israel, a lot of American Jews. And I think now people are seeing that Israel's the tip of the spear. Right? Israel is the Jew among the nations. So what happens and is happening to Israel is happening to Jews around the world, and there's no separation. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. We're seeing it. Death to Israel has become death to the Jews. And I'm not suggesting that just because we have a sense of shared victimhood, that's what should define our relationship with Israel, but we surely can't ignore it at this time. It's okay to have a complicated relationship. Many of us have complicated relationships with members of our family. That's okay. But have a relationship with Israel. Recognize there's one Jewish homeland, just one. And finally, the S in Tachlis is for Shabbat and spirituality. Shabbat, what we're doing here. Everybody needs a Shabbat ritual. Everybody needs some sort of something. Warren and I were just talking about how during COVID, we both independently started a tech-free Shabbat. We were both getting so overwhelmed because you're working from home and there's just no separation. And a friend of mine, Tiffany Schlein, wrote this great book, 24/6, The Art of Unplugging. Rabbi's nodding. It's another great speaker for you to bring, Nancy, for this. I'm happy to introduce you. But she said, just have a tech-free Shabbat. Get away from screens. It can be cleansing. But having some spiritual practice, connecting yourself to something higher. Call it what you want. Some people have an issue with the word God. I don't have an issue with the word God. Call it Mother Nature. Call it the universal. Call it divine force. But recognize that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. That's what it means to have a spiritual relationship. There's your Tachlis. Your 7 elements, if you can grab onto any piece of those, you can have a meaningful, relevant, joyful Jewish life, and it can give your life meaning. I'm going to pause now. I jam a lot. I talk really fast because there's a lot to say, and I'm really excited about this stuff. But I'm going to pause because I know we want to give some time for questions from the audience. I don't know how we want to do this, but there's a couple microphones here. So, okay, thank you. Feel free to challenge me, by the way. I like to be a little provocative. I did an interview with an Orthodox magazine. They didn't always agree with everything I had to say, as you might imagine. I have no problem with folks.
Comments.
Yeah, comments, questions.
Anyone?
Did I stick to the time okay, Rabbi?
Wait, you need to use the mic.
Mic.
So they can hear you online.
Hi, we have two 23-year-old and a 27-year-old. And the 27-year-old we've spoken to about joining a synagogue where he lives. But I love the way that the list of Jewish organizations that can connect them.
Yeah.
Is that is the list in your book, or?
It is.
Great. I'll just buy the book then. And then.
In the back, there's a list of a bibliography of books that have been impactful to me. There's a list of organizations that I recommend, websites that they can go to. There's a panoply of great organizations out there right now, because synagogue's not always going to work for everybody. You know that. I mean, again, it's judgment-free. I'm a member of many synagogues I don't go to. It's just part of what I do, but I'm just kidding. The reality is there are times in my life that it works, and there are times in my life that I want another connection. I want to be out on the hiking trail, so yeah.
You promised Lillian and you promised us that you would talk about Z3.
Yes, Z3. Thank you. So I came from AIPAC, where many of you might know AIPAC, some of you might not. AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It's a political organization that lobbies the U.S. government for a strong relationship between the U.S. and Israel. Nonpartisan. Works with Democrats and Republicans. Democrats get all pissed off because they work with the lefties. Republicans get pissed, vice versa, right? Everyone's upset with it, but it ensures that we have access to the highest levels of power, always, no matter who's in office. I came from 15 years at AIPAC. I came to the JCC, and I started having all of these events to talk about why the Iran deal back in 2013, remember the Iran deal, was a bad thing. And one of my board members came to me and said, are you going to have anybody talk about why it might be a good thing? I said, no, what are you, crazy? It's a terrible thing for America, a terrible thing for Israel. And he was a mensch. This board member didn't make me defensive. He didn't put my back against a wall. He didn't stand up at a board meeting. He just said, you might want to think about it. So I did some real soul searching, and I decided, you know what, we can try this. So I brought two people who are in favor of the Iran deal, two people against the Iran nuclear deal, and I had the local NPR guy moderate it. 800 people showed up. I was like, whoa, this is good. We can do this. And we had really big conversations, big disagreements, and it was okay. I said, we need to do this for other stuff too. We need to bring the left and the right, the Orthodox and the secular, Israelis and Americans. And we started the Zionism 3.0 effort in 2014. I said, I'm going to bring speakers like Peter Beinart, who AIPAC would never bring. And I'm going to bring speakers that J Street would never bring, like Brett Stevens. And I brought them to, this was way back when nobody was doing this. And it started to work. And we started having these conversations. Now, what's happened over the last 9 years is it's evolved from just being like, let's mash together the whole community and have civil dialogue. It's evolved. So what it's become is this notion that we're in the third iteration of Zionism. The first, Zionism 1.0, was pre-1948. It was the Zionism of Herzl. It was back when the Zionist Congress said, we need a Jewish homeland to protect us because of anti-Semitism. Zionism 2.0 was 1948 till roughly 2000, when it was the ethos of upbuilding the state. They have a state, state's declared, and there was this notion of what I call diaspora negation. We were bad Jews for not making Aliyah. We were kind of weaker. We didn't have the chutzpah. So our job here in the diaspora was to support them, write checks. But we had a stake with no say, right? That was the ethos of Zionism 2.0. You out here, your kids aren't serving in the army. You're not paying taxes. Your kids aren't being blown up. You don't get to have a say. Just write your checks and shut up. Rich American uncle. That was Zionism 2.0. And what happened around the shift in the century is Israel became strong. And American Jewry strong, saying, like, let's change the nature of this relationship. Let's find a way to be consultative, to work together and not necessarily beat up on each other or say, hands off. And what we've seen now, especially since October 7th, is this is a moment for a joint relationship. We just had a massive, our 9th annual Zionism 3.0 conference this last Sunday. 1,200 people showed up. It was the first conference live in person since October 7th. There'd been rallies, there's been solidarity missions, there's been a lot of Zooms. But this was the first one in person. I had the left and the right, the Orthodox and the secular. Israelis came, and it was a really important conversation. And I said to them, I said, look, I'm going to offend all of you in this room right now, because there were a lot of Israelis, a lot of Americans. I said, if Israelis, thank God Israelis are aggressive. They live in the toughest neighborhood in the world. The only way they're surviving is because they have sharp elbows and they can survive in that part of the world. But sometimes their assertiveness doesn't always get them what they want here in America, right? And by the way, I married into an Israeli family, so I can say that with a little bit. And I said, Americans, look, as Jews in the diaspora, we've been minorities forever, so we know how to keep our head down. We know how to blend in. And maybe over the years, we've gotten a little too comfortable. And we've had that sixth sense, that spidey sense of danger on the horizon, we've had it bred out of us. So we got a little too complacent. So maybe if Israelis are a little too aggressive sometimes, and maybe as diaspora Jews we're not aggressive enough sometimes, maybe we could find an equilibrium. Maybe we could take the best of each, the best of diaspora, and find Zionism 3.0, this next best combination of our both traits, our best both, and make a new Jewish peoplehood that it makes us stronger, prouder, better. That's the idea of Zionism 3.0. Oh, prompted a couple more questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Very concerned about what's going on college campuses across the nation. And I'm wondering what thoughts you have about how to create dialogue, to stem the tide, to make change.
Yeah, it's very concerning. My oldest daughter is a freshman on Columbia's campus. Columbia is one of the bad ones. Not that there are any great ones, by the way. The news is just today the Columbia president just came out today to outlaw SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, because just today, this was what Brandeis did this earlier in the week, because they had been in violation of university codes. Not because ideologically they were opposed to what they stood for, but what's happening on college campuses is terrible, and it's making our children afraid. One of my colleagues' kids goes to NYU. I don't know if you saw last week, some of these NYU students had to barricade themselves in a library because an angry mob was coming after them, shouting "Free Palestine." You're seeing teachers shame Jewish kids at Stanford. One of these teachers asked the Jewish kids to stand up and made them go into the corner and say, that's what's happening, that's what Israel's doing to Palestine. So it's bad right now. And I think that our kids are getting a splash of cold water in the face. A lot of our kids have grown up very comfortably. Me growing up here in Claremont, I didn't really face any anti-Semitism. This was a wonderful place to grow up. It was beautiful. I knew it was out there, but I never really saw it. Now our kids are seeing it on college campuses. I happen to believe that the best antidote to our kids being afraid is making them proud. It's the work that you're doing to make them proud of doing Jewish. It doesn't mean they have to be stupid and run around with giant pins like this in unsafe environments. I will tell you, when we went, I spoke at this big San Francisco pro-Israel rally a couple weeks ago. And after the rally, my wife and kids, we all had our big shirts on and our flags, and we wanted to get a taco, and we went to a part of the city called the Mission. Got out of the car, and there was Free Palestine stuff everywhere. Spray painted, flyers. So we covered up our shirts. We just didn't need to provoke that, right? This is happening right now in America. My daughter got on the subway in New York, and a bunch of people in keffiyehs got on with knives. And she's like, I got off. And then she started taking Ubers. But one of her friends said that they got in an Uber, and the guy said, are you Jewish? And the girl who was Jewish said, no. And he said, good, because if you were, I would have killed you. So she's changed her Uber name from Talia to Taylor, just to be safe. It's like, right? So it's about being safe, but being proud. So while she's being safe and she's being smart and she's not putting herself out there, she's also been invited to speak at the pro-Israel rally in D.C. next Tuesday, this big, massive rally. She's publishing in the Times of Israel, articles about why she cares about Israel. She spent last year in Israel between high school and college. So it's about us as parents, as grandparents, making our kids feel safe, making them feel good about caring about Israel, making them feel good about their Jewishness, helping them be smart and make smart decisions and not jump into a crowd of angry protesters and do anything silly. But that's how we have to make our kids feel loved and safe right now, that it's okay to be Jewish, but it's also okay to be smart about not wearing your big chai outside your shirt all the time. That's the moment we're in right now. By the way, I do think we will get past this. There are dark moments. I don't think this is not 1938. I want to say this because there's a lot of worry in seeing the vandalism and the smashed up stores and the whole world seeming to turn against the Jews. And we can go dark very quickly, especially those of you who are spending a lot of time on social media. The stuff out there is bad, but this is not 1938. And there are two huge differences. Number one, today there is an Israel. There's a strong Jewish state with a strong Jewish army, making sure that there's always a place for Jews. There was a major blip on October 7th, but they will be okay. They will come back. They will win this war. They will restabilize. They will make sure it's a safe. And number two, America is standing with Israel. Okay? In 1938, we couldn't get the U.S. government to bomb the tracks to Auschwitz. We didn't know what was going on. We couldn't get the U.S. government to save 1,000 Jews that were sitting in a ship, the SS St. Louis. We could. Today, the President of the United States goes to Israel. Billions of dollars going to Israel. Military aid going to Israel. 2 aircraft carriers and a submarine out there right now shooting down Houthi missiles. It's a different moment. It's not 1938. So let's not let ourselves go down this spiral of darkness and get really, really, really scared. Let's just roll up our sleeves and get to work.
So I like your positivity about how the diaspora and Israel are coming together, but I'm not 100% seeing that. And there are a lot of Jewish friends of mine, especially young people, but also people my age, who are genocide, apartheid, from the river to the sea. And I think we need to acknowledge that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we talk to especially the young people who are like, maybe Israel shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I think that, thank you for the question. And I think language is really important. So I think that we have to recognize there's a difference between those people who are going to hate Israel, who are going to hate the Jews, who are not going to be convinced, and then those people who are just questioning, those people who really want to learn, those people who are open to having a conversation. Okay, so first of all, let's differentiate. And I'm thinking that most of the people you're talking about are the ones in the middle group that are wanting to learn and questioning. They should be corrected on their language. It's not a genocide. It's not colonialism. It's not ethnic cleansing. It's a lot of those ugly words that our adversaries are using, and we have to make sure that our friends are not buying into that. Is it a bad situation for Israelis living in the West Bank? Palestinians living in the West Bank? In some cases, yeah. But Gaza had not had a Jew living in it since 2005. We have to remind people that since 2005, when Israel pulled out, Palestinians have been running Gaza. That Hamas was elected in an election. They killed Fatah. They threw out Fatah. They haven't had another election. And they've chosen, with the infusion of international cash, to build the weapons tunnels and to build the route. Like, we have to have a little bit of knowledge to talk to them about it. Again, does it mean that the Palestinians are living it up? No. But right now, the horrible things that we're all seeing, the innocent Palestinians that are dying, it's because of Hamas. Right? What Hamas did on October 7th is inexcusable. And there's no moral equivalency between actively going out and killing innocent people, raping, beheading babies, parading them around in the streets. Our community does not celebrate when Palestinian babies die when a building collapses. That doesn't happen. Hamas does that. And not Palestinians, by the way. I am more pro-Palestinian than Hamas. I care more about a Palestinian state and innocent Palestinian lives than Hamas, who uses them as civilian shields. So I think we can differentiate between, yeah, Palestinian lives, it's rough, but Hamas is an evil terrorist organization, and it's binary. There's some things in life that are binary, okay? We had to end slavery. We had to end Nazism. You can't make peace. You can't make a ceasefire. There's some things that can either exist or not exist. And what Hamas is doing has to be ended, because that's what's going to allow the Palestinians to thrive. That's going to allow a peace process to thrive. So you have to be able to have these conversations, and some people are willing to listen and some people are not. Our young people are being drawn in because of intersectionality. And I think if you have an open-minded person who's willing to listen, you can have this conversation. And you don't have to say Israel's doing everything right. You don't have to whitewash the things that Israel's doing that are troublesome to you. That's not what we're talking about. But what happened on October 7th is beyond the pale. It's something different. And that's what we have to remind people of. So their inability to see that and to turn October 7th against the Jews is what I think we have to remind our friends and our allies, that we're feeling alone right now. So it's worth a deep conversation with people you care about and whose minds you think you can influence. But don't do it on social media. Don't do it en masse. Just have one-on-one conversations with people who are willing to engage. That's my advice in this moment. And you're not going to win them all, right? You're not, because there has been this false equation set up that this is a war between white colonialist Jews who've come in from the outside and indigenous people of color who've been displaced. That's the story that's being told. And progressive circles have bought into that narrative overwhelmingly, and we have to push back on that by saying the truth, that 70% of Israeli society are people of color, Mizrahi Jews, Sephardi Jews, Jews who've been there for 8 generations, and people don't know that because the misinformation campaign out there is ugly. So it's worth investing the time in a real conversation with people. Again, without saying like, Israel's perfect. America's not perfect. And all our friends who want to point fingers at Israel because of their imperfections, they didn't move to Canada when Trump was in office. They didn't stop paying their taxes when Trump was in office. When Trump appointed the Supreme Court people that he appointed, they didn't walk away from America. They said, I'm going to double down and do better to make it better. So that's what I would say to my friends who like, you don't think Israel's perfect? Great, work to make it better. Don't walk away from it. Don't say I want nothing to do with that apartheid state. Work to make it better, just like we're working to make America better in our image of perfection is an ideal that's ridiculous, as we know, but that's what I would say to people. Instead of writing them off and using ugly language, work to make it better if you want to make it better. That's my take.
Yes, I just want to say that, I mean, I'm scared right now. I've never been scared as an American here. The only time I was ever scared about anti-Semitism, where I was really scared for my own body, was when we did a family roots trip, to Poland with my parents. And that sixth sense that you described, okay, all of us kids, grandkids, said, don't worry, Abba, it's fine. We're just going to the town square. It's Sunday. We're going to walk around. He said, it's a bad idea. Sure enough, we go in there and we have a little bit of an issue. Okay. So that sixth sense thing really, really strikes. But I've never felt that here. Much like when Trump was president, and suddenly out of the woodwork, all the white nationalists felt it was okay to come out with torches and such. So to me, this is a similar moment in that anti-Semitism has been here. It's been maybe, below the level like white nationalists were. And so what has given, you think, anti-Semitism the go-ahead to be anti-Semitic, and that's okay now?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's always been there. It will always be there. I think that, so I had a meeting recently with an individual who is the founder and runs the biggest cyber company in the world, cyber tech protection company. And he said that the White House called him recently and said, help us with our cyber policy. And he started doing some digging and looking into this. And what he discovered is that Iran, Russia, and China have been on a disinformation campaign in this country for the last 2 decades. They've been feeding through all sorts of channels through social media, and we have to walk back from that. But what they've been doing is they've been feeding disinformation, which has painted the Jews in a communist country, they're capitalists. In a capitalist country, they're communists. Right? They can't be one. So the anti-Semitism has always been there, and it pops its head at various times. And right now, Israel has become the Jew among the nations. That notion that Israel could do no right is what's emerging, that a country like Israel that had 1,400 of its civilians, just regular people, butchered, children, kids that were at a concert for peace, and not every single member of the world community is coming out to condemn that. Even the Nazis tried to hide their crimes. But Hamas went in and videotaped it and proudly showed it everywhere. And for the world to not be like, that's wrong, for CNN to still not call Hamas terrorists, but still use the terms militants and fighters, there's something deeply inset in us that's broken. And it's scary. I am hopeful, but I'm not going to try to whitewash the bad out there. I just think that all of us have an opportunity to roll up our sleeves. Rather than wringing our hands, we've got to roll up our sleeves and get to work and figure out how we want to make a difference. Is it with our local city councils? Is it with the school boards? Is it with the local newspapers? Is it figuring out what's being taught at Claremont High School and El Roble in these classes? Warren and I were reminiscing about a teacher that we had here that, I remember him not being so great for us on the topic of Israel when we were in high school, and we didn't know any better. We were just kids. But right now, we're all seeing this, And you have an opportunity to work with your kids to make sure that they're in safer spaces. So we're not powerless at this moment. And anti-Semitism is always going to be there. Right now, Israel's the excuse. So what are we going to do about it? That's the question. What are we going to do about it?
I was very impressed with the presentation today.
Thank you.
I'm seeing, at least in my perspective, a lack in conversation between the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That the Holocaust occurred in a Christian-dominated society in Europe. Here we are faced with a Muslim-dominated society and a potential Holocaust in the Middle East. I mean, if there's not a precursor to a Holocaust, what Hamas did, and people rallying the flag, going from river to the sea, that's a foundation. But I'm not seeing a relationship between those three Abrahamic religions. Who's good, who's right, who's going to heaven, who's going to hell, what relationships are of value and which ones aren't. And when I see this world, what?
What's the question?
I wanted you to contrast those two situations and in relation to the three Abrahamic religions.
So I think that the relationship, the conversations are happening, but they're very small and they're very grassroots and they're in particular communities, in particular pockets. And those relationships and conversations are easier to have happen in the good times. And right now, everyone is kind of cordoning themselves off into their own corners because everyone's suffering, everyone's feeling attacked. It's the more victimization game. I'm more of a victim than you're a victim. So it's very hard to have those conversations right now. You're right. It's very hard to have them. They were happening before October 7th a lot in our neck of the woods in Northern California. You could find them in every living room dialogue group. It was a conversation. There was the Moishe House for young Jewish kids. There was Abraham houses popping up. And the Abraham houses were for young people of all three Abrahamic religions to kind of live together. In this moment, you're right. It's very tough. It's very tough because I think a lot of members of the Jewish community are feeling like they have been betrayed by their friends and allies in other communities who are not standing up and vocally supporting them. And so there's not a lot of willingness. There's a lot of Israelis in my community. There's about 50,000 Israeli expats living in the Bay Area. And I have to tell you, like, I just did an advocacy training session with them last night, a lot of them, and there's not a lot of willingness to be talking about, innocent Palestinian lives being lost right now. There's a lot of pain and suffering amongst the Israelis, many of whom have lost family members, who have family members who have been kidnapped, who have family members who have been called up to serve. So there's not a lot of patience to talk to the other Abrahamic faiths right now. And it's heartbreaking, but it's just the moment they're in right now because they're in a state of war. So I'm confident that it will come back, but right now it's a tough moment, and that's just the state of where we are.
One last question.
Well, I liked how you said a few minutes ago that we can all do something to help.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious what examples you have for us to take away that we can do to be helpful in this situation.
Excellent. All right. Good. Let's end on a moment of hopefulness. Tachlis, action. What's the tachlis we can do? So we pivoted from the tachlis around Judaism to the tachlis around Zionism and Israel and fighting anti-Semitism. So let me give you a handful of things that you can be doing right now. Number one, as I mentioned, you can be engaging with the local city council. I don't know, I haven't been in touch with what's going on here locally, city council, county supervisors. I don't know how they are on the issue of Israel, condemning Hamas, condemning anti-Semitism, but find out, be engaged, talk to those members. If you want them to put out a resolution, work with the local Jewish Community Relations Council or Federation or whoever's kind of takes lead on that. That's number one. Number two, the school boards. What's being taught in the textbooks. We had textbooks that were being used in the San Mateo High School, which is between San Francisco and where I am in Silicon Valley, that was teaching that Passover was a holiday where the Jews were celebrating the genocide of Egyptian children. Because remember what the 10th plague was. Remember the 10th plague was the death of Egyptian firstborn? So they took that whole thing and blew it up to, that's what they were teaching in schools, that Passover is the celebration of genocide against Egyptians, right? So we had an opportunity to go in and fix the curriculum. So figure out what's being taught in the schools and see if you can make a difference there right now, especially vis-a-vis Israel. That's number two. Number three, put up those posters, those kidnap posters, anywhere you can. Don't let people look away. Put them up. Don't put them up in illegal places. It's not me telling you to put, but put them up and don't let people look away. Right? These are children and grandparents and innocent people who are being held right now. So putting up the posters is another thing you can do. Be in touch with your alma maters. I don't know how your colleges are right now, but if they're as bad as some of these schools out there, withhold your funds, write your letters, but make sure that they hear that you're frustrated. Next is tell Congress. Tell Congress that you're either happy with them, you're not happy with them. This is a body of 435 mostly non-Jewish individuals who are giving billions of dollars to Israel. They're taking a lot of flack right now. Let them know that you appreciate them if that's what you wanted them to do. Get active at that congressional level as well. And then train yourselves to write letters to the editor. I heard you were on the front page of the Claremont Courier. Let your local papers know how you feel. Let the LA Times, is that a thing still, the LA Times? It was a thing when I was here years ago. Barely. But, write letters to the editor. Fight back on social media if appropriate. I don't think that's the best ROI, the best return on investment for your time and energy. And the last thing I will say is figure out who has the reins of power wherever you want to make an impact and develop relationships with those people. It's all about relationships. I spent 15 years in politics, and I can tell you the number one rule was it's much easier to say no to a stranger than it is to your friend. Much harder to say no to a friend. So if you have a friend that you're asking for something or thanking, it makes a bigger difference than just a regular constituent. So develop a relationship. It takes time. Develop a relationship with that next person. The mayor, Gavin Newsom, who traveled to Israel, he went to Camp Tawanga, by the way, Jewish summer camp up north. He was on the San Francisco City Council when we started reaching out to him, and then became the mayor of San Francisco. And he rose up the ranks. Back when he was a city council member, we took him to Israel. And he has a relationship with us. So he just had a confidential meeting with the leaders of the community 2 days ago. And some of the things you're going to see him doing in the next 2 weeks are remarkable to stand up against anti-Semitism. But that's because people developed relationships back when he was a little pisher on the city council, right? You can do that too. And look how important he is. And he may be president one day. So develop your relationships now with those people who you think matter, and it will pay off dividends in the future. With that, I just want to say thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate you. Laura. I had to reorient myself, but that's what you're next on the schedule.
It's been a fabulous evening. Zach, you have given us so much to think about. Thank you. So, Shabbat Shalom from your board of trustees. Thank you, Rabbi, for leading the service tonight. I can't turn around, but I would if I could. And for inspiring us and comforting us throughout these hard times. Thank you, Cantor, for your strength and lifting our spirits with your music tonight. Thank you, Randy, for always enriching our Shabbats. And thank you, Claudia, for connecting us to our friends and neighbors online. Deep appreciation and thanks to the Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series Committee for putting this splendid evening together, for arranging our gracious dinner, our incredible speaker. Thank you to the Medlitskis for suggesting and hosting. The beautiful oneg we will have shortly, and the luncheon tomorrow. Well done, Brenda Rosenfeld. She would have been very proud. Shout out to tonight's greeters, Eitan Resnick, Kylie Sykes, Sharon Regalado, Heidi Howard, and Judy Rose. After the service, as always, join us in the social hall for Kiddush, the beautiful oneg, and conversation. As you know, and as we always say, TBI is a very active community. So here are a few things coming up, and then later I'll tell you how to get more details. Next Friday night, November 17th, our special Shabbat Together service is from 7 to 8, designed for school-age kids and up. Will include an Israel-themed oneg provided by the Israel Committee and we'll have some Israeli music and Israeli dancing in honor of Israel. And please join us. Sunday, November 19th, WTBI is sponsoring a luncheon, but more importantly, a presentation by Dina Benjamin, who will share highlights of the year-long trip she and Art planned, Dina planned, and took around the world. So, November 19th. TBI's Hanukkah festivities kick off on Sunday, December 3rd, which really is right around the corner, in the afternoon with a tasty event, What Do You Fry for Hanukkah? Sponsored by I'm smiling at Tammy because she's going to be doing it, sponsored by Adult Jewish Learning and WTBI. So we go from frying to flying, because that morning, December 3rd, TBI Brotherhood is offering a presentation by our own Chuck Fisher on radio-controlled planes and drones, very important to Jewish life. So thank you, Brotherhood and Chuck. So find more details on our Facebook page, our website, our Thursday Tikiyah, and the monthly Kehillah. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Laura. I have two quick things to add. One is also on the 19th. Some of you may have noticed that in the Tikiyah on 6 p.m. at Sinai Temple in Los Angeles, there's a big rally in support of Israel. I'm honored to have been asked to participate in that in some small way. But somebody asked me today, I got an email from one of our community, what do I have to register? Do I have to buy? As far as I know, just show up. Security needs are never more than top priority at Sinai Temple, but when in the advertising, the promotion I've received, there's no pre-registration or anything required. I don't know if there's an online component. I just know that I'm going to be there, and I would love to see some of my TBI friends there as well. One other thing I'll mention, coming up in December, we are honored to be presenting honoring the Federation for their 30th anniversary, a performance of a not well-known show, but a great show anyway, called Stars of David. It's something that I did for the Cantor's Assembly Convention earlier this year, and Cantor Judy Sofer and Cantor Marcia Tilchin and Cantor Daniel Friedman and a whole bunch of other people will be doing a stage reading of this wonderful show, which is all about great Jews in the entertainment industry throughout history. I get to play Leonard Nimoy, and no, I don't wear the ears. So anyway, keep that just on your radar. You'll see more publicity in the coming days.
But he can do the hand thing, which
That's
I can't
right.
do. So.
Very easily. I can do it this way too, buddy. Anyway, I just want to share those two things. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move toward the conclusion of our service. We turn to page 282 in the middle of the page for Aleinu L'Shabeach. Those who can comfortably do so, I invite you to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשינו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Shemo Echad.
Page 294. We take a moment to remember those who have been important in our lives and have left this earth, to remember those who have died in recent days or at this time in years past, those who were killed in Israel or since October 7th in combat, that we hold with the rest of the Jewish people when we Sad Kaddish, and work to honor their memories through our deeds in this world. We remember the recent deaths of Lila Hauer and of Lisa Smolin. Remember the yortzites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Joseph Blendman, Fritz Silton, John T. Jack Edwards, Jay Ginsburg, Rabbi Stanley Rosenbaum, Sally Ambrose, Harold Chester, Mary Coyle, Louis Goodman, Jerry Klinghoffer, John Powers Myque, Norbert Lowe, Marvin Minoff, Bernard Nagby, Alan Aaron, Hannah Cohen, Merton Gill, Sam Mallam, Philip Siegel, David Kimmel, Ruth Klein, Jean Rosenblum, Rian Joel Rowe, Mildred Schulman, Rose Arnold, Harriet Gull, Bertha Hurwitz, Dr. Israel Langsner, and Julian Ambrose. If you're remembering somebody on this Shabbat and would like to add their name to those that I've shared or restate a name that I've shared, please feel free to do so as I come by your row. For those of you who are online, you can share with others who are online by putting a name in the chat.
Linda Bush Smith, Cy Yaloff, and Pearl McCoy.
If you're in a time of mourning or observing a yortzeit on the Shabbat, I invite you to please rise. And I invite the rest of the congregation, if it's your custom, to rise in embrace and support of those who mourn. Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrachi rute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon, u'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizban kari v'imru amen. Yahei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei du kudusha brichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yahei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Just a special welcome to, we have some students here who are joining us at University of Laverne. Are you from Laverne? Yeah? Welcome. Good to have you with us. Come introduce yourself in the Oneg. We have nice desserts and stuff. I'm glad you're with us this evening. And we're going to close with the last stanza of Adon Olam with Biyado, which is on page 321.
בידו
אף כי ברוכי, בית אישן ועירה, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, Adonai li velo ira. My soul I give to you.
My soul I give to you.
My spirit in your care.
My spirit in your care.
Draw me near, I shall not fear.
Draw me near, I shall not
Hold
fear.
me in your hand.
Hold me in your hand.
Draw me near, I shall not fear.
Draw me near, I shall not
Safely
fear.
in your hand.
Safely in your hand.
My soul I give to you. My soul I give to you. My spirit in your care. My spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Yado af kibruchi.
My soul I give to you. My spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. I shall not fear. Safely in your
For those of you who have joined us online, thank you for being with us. Shabbat Shalom. For all of you in the sanctuary, please join us in the social hall for Kiddush, Motzi, refreshments. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.